Welcome, everyone. I call to order the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates from our county administrator. Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair.
This February 15, 2022, excuse me.
No worries. Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioners Schrader and Fisher are out of the office today. They are attending the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. So we have Commissioners Savas, Shull, and Chair Smith are present today. There is a quorum. We'll meet with the different governing bodies first to do that off the bat. So Chair, if you would please announce, the board will now meet as the development agency.
I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Development Agency Board. Gary, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Shannon, would you please bring in Dan Johnson? Commissioners, this is a request for a consent agenda item for the Development Agency. It is a request for a public hearing, not a consent agenda. My apologies. It is a request for a public hearing on March 3rd, 2022. We need to give 2 weeks notice for a budget public hearing, which is why we're coming to you 2 weeks in advance. This is approval to put as a public hearing a resolution for a Clackamas County Development Agency supplemental budget greater than 10% for fiscal year 2021-2022. Dan Johnson is the Director of Transportation and Development. Please go ahead, Dan.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning, all. Quickly, each year it's necessary to reduce or allocate additional funding sources of revenue and appropriations, additional expenditures for various projects to ensure a balanced budget. The Development Agency, as you are very aware, is completing a very large project, has completed a very large project. And there were a number of unforeseen circumstances around COVID-19 and need for additional inspection services related to the project based on its scope and scale. This is the Clackamas Regional Center project, the overcrossing over I-205 that was widened recently. Pardon me. Basically, these adjustments will do a couple of things just to make sure we're clear with the board. They're going to recognize actual beginning fund balances. They are going to reduce anticipated land sales, and they are going to recognize additional contingency needed to cover these costs. And that's all identified within the packet before you today. These changes are in compliance with statute, which allows for governing bodies to approve a supplemental budget when there is an occurrence or condition that is not ascertained when preparing the original budget. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have and respond as to anything you may raise as a concern. Again, this is a request to schedule a public hearing for March 3rd, which will be noticed by Development Agency staff.
Okay, Commissioner Shull, your hand is up.
Yes, Dan, you need to move 551,000 from contingency funds to capital lines. Excuse me. What would that leave in your contingency fund? And what kind of flexibility does that give you should this happen again next year?
The project is completed, and there isn't a lot, in all honesty, in this fund as a whole. I'd have to go back and get that exact number back to you. But I believe, this is one of our larger urban renewal districts. It's actually coming to a close. And so the budget as a whole, just to give you a context, the budget as a whole, I think for next year is probably around 1.5 million, I think if I recall correctly. So there isn't a lot of money left. Any projects we would do next year would be very targeted and very small, which we have a couple ideas that we're sharing with our Development Agency Budget Committee. So we shouldn't be having any kind of over expenditures because essentially we'll be budgeting all the money to be spent.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Well, one more question, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
The 551K, you need that for upcoming expenses on the project? No.
It's spent expenditures we've already seen. We're just pulling our budget in line with those expenditures. You've already approved the contract for the inspection services, and I want to make sure that I'm clear because we use that word COVID-19 a lot, just to be clear with the board. These are basically supply chain issues that we saw primarily that raised the cost of the project a little bit. Keep in mind that project was a $30 million project. And so in regards to the $500,000, I don't want to ever say $500,000 isn't a lot of money, but in regards to the whole scope and scale of the project, it was a minimal amount. So
you had to augment your inspection staff in the building department to get this done?
In our engineering staff, we had some retirements, number one, and then secondly, we had to do additional inspection services with a consultant based on the scope and the scale of this particular project. It was about a mile-long project.
Yeah.
It had an overcrossing, had night work. It had a variety of things that we had to deal with.
Yeah, I saw you guys working on it a long time. They did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any objections to a hearing happening on March 3rd? Seeing none. Dan, go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Dan. Chair, would you now convene as the Water and Environment Services Board?
Yes, I will now recess as a development agency board and convene as the Water Environment Services Board. Gary, you're up.
Chair Smith, this is an advisory board appointment for the Water Environment Services Advisory Committee, which advises the Water Environment Services Board. Shannon, would you please read the applicants, please?
Yes, the Water Environment Services Advisory Committee of Clackamas County is staffed by the Department of Water and Environment Services. They recruited for one seat because of an expiring term. And their recommendation is to reappoint Roseanne Johnson as the development representative. This will be her second appointment. That is all.
Do I see a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved the appointment of Roseanne Johnson to the West Board, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Shannon, please call the poll.
Mark Scholl? Sorry,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that, Commissioner Scholl.
So now I will adjourn as a Water Environment Services Board and convene as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Gary, what's up?
Thank you, Chair. Shannon, would you please bring in Mike Bork? This is, Commissioners, a consent agenda request for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. It is approval of a board order authorizing the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District to apply for a Metro Trails grant for development of the Trolley Trail multi-use path along Milwaukee Bay Park. This application seeks $624,250 in funding with a 45% required match. The match will be funded by system development charges. The amount is not listed, but it's approximately $500,000. We'll ask Mike to confirm that. No county general funds are involved. Mike Bork is the Director of North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Mike, can you turn your camera on? Go ahead, Mike. Mike, I think Mike might be having internet issues.
No, my invitation just finished processing.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, commissioners. As Gary mentioned, we're requesting a board order to authorize us to apply for a Metro Trails grant for the development of this trolley trail multi-use path as part of the Milwaukee Bay Park project. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but the total project amount, as the county administrator mentioned, 55% of it is the grant request. The 45% match would be it's $510,750. Right now would be allocated through or matched through SDC charges. We anticipate several months of application process, but hopefully have an award notification sometime this fall, which would allow this to be part of the overall Milwaukee Bay Park development project when it moves forward. Beyond that, I guess I'll stop there and see if there's questions.
Yeah, there's a couple hands up. Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yes, Mr. Bork. Question one, does your staff have the ability to take on this project? And two, that $510,000 from system development charges, could that be better used someplace else on one of our other existing projects?
This is money that's already been budgeted as part of the Milwaukee Bay Park project. It was part of the unsecured funds. There was a $1.2 or $1.3 million unsecured funds. This would go towards basically filling that gap. So it's already money that is part of the SDC calculation.
Okay, so you're comfortable with NCPRD handling this project?
To the answer your first part, I believe we even mentioned in the report that currently we don't have that capacity, and that's been one of our holdups of even getting the board order to you in a timely fashion. But we are in the process of hiring a senior planner that we hope to have on board very soon, which would take a large load of our workload from asset development.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Savas, your hand is up.
Yeah, so Mike, I was not able, in board and staff, I was not able to attend the meeting on Wednesday night, the DAC meeting. So I don't know if this came up. I've certainly seen some emails since that time about what's on the agenda here today. And I don't know, frankly, where to go with this yet today. I do know also that there have been requests for some trolley trail improvements like lighting on the southern part, which would be eligible for a grant like this, I believe. And frankly, as I understand that the match percentage is tied to the local income. And in the area where the ask is made for the lighting of the trail is a lower income, so it would have a far lower match. Have we pursued the other trolley trail request?
No, well, we've pursued other trolley trail requests through earmarks and other funding sources. For this one, again, I want to remind the commissioners, this is part of our Milwaukee Bay Park plan. We knew that there were going to be other grants coming available to help fund the plan. This trolley trail extension, which goes through Milwaukee Bay Park and along the front edge of Milwaukee Bay Park, was part of the overall plan no matter what. So when and we had identified Metro Trails funding as a potential funding source. As far as the match is concerned, we don't have to use the match out of SDCs. We can, if we were awarded the grant several months in the future, when we came back, it could be matched through a variety of sources. And in fact, we think that that's going to be a possibility, but one of them is a leverage on something else that we haven't received. So we're not quite sure. SDC dollars is where it makes sense because that's where we've got it budgeted in our current budget.
Yeah, but thanks, Mike. I appreciate that response. But my question is, have we pursued other requests along the trail for this particular grant that we could add and build on? I believe we have 10 days left before the deadline, the filing deadline. So is there any opportunity to look at the other request? Why did staff only pursue this portion and not the rest of the trolley trail?
Shannon, I believe that Heather Cook is in the audience. Could we bring her in? Because she would be able to better answer that. My understanding is we had to be very specific in what this trail grant was.
I'm getting some strange noises like whistling or whatever it is.
I apologize. It is my parrot, and I've been trying to get him out of the room. He just decided now to start squawking.
Okay, go ahead and mute yourself, Mike. Thank you. Okay, we had a request for who to come in. Heather?
Heather Cook, she's coming in.
Good morning, commissioners.
Go ahead, Heather, and answer that question, please.
Yes, it's a great question. There's a lot of eligibility requirements for this grant, for this particular bond money from Metro. And so they are really looking for trails to fill a gap, and it be new trail construction, as well as there's a kind of a threshold for minimum projects. So we're looking at doing some trail improvements in other areas with other NCPRD funding over time.
So would this essentially, if it was built in, as Mike was kind of saying, if it was built into the Milwaukee Bay project, so it's not new money that we're asking for? I mean, it was money that would have been spent on the project already, so it's consistent with the funding IGA that's somewhat been put forth by Milwaukee?
Yes, and essentially what it's doing is allowing us to fill some of the gap in the project, in the total project budget currently, and further leverage our local funds so that we can essentially bring in more local, regional, state partners.
So the funding obligation for the construction would be reduced. If we win this grant, would be reduced by $600,000 if we win the grant, and it wouldn't be an add to the funding agreement in totality, monetarily.
it would in the funding agreement that the board would consider in the future, that Milwaukee has approved, that funding agreement that I believe you're referring to. This is referred to as part of the existing gap, so it would fill part of that gap. What it doesn't do is it doesn't add on to the amounts stated in that document for SDCs. We're basically continuing to draw from that specified pot to specify a match.
Okay. Chair, I would ask, it just seems like it ought to be a reduction in the requirement. If it was part of the project, it'd be a reduction. So can we just move this to next Tuesday? And I can get my questions answered. I also like to get another update on the movement with the master IGA, as far as have we made any progress with that, and what is the status on the master IGA?
And are you talking about the master IGA with Milwaukee Bay? But we're not being asked a question about Milwaukee Bay. We're being asked a question on grant funds for the trolley trail that just happens to go through Milwaukee Bay, and I want to keep those separate. Yes, Commissioner Savas, if we don't have the votes today, we'll do that, but we need to focus on exactly what question we're being asked on this, and are we going to let them apply for a grant? Heather, your hand is up.
I just wanted to clarify in the event that that wasn't the explanation that was clear, just that the total project amount that is in this related document hasn't changed. So this is just part of the same package. So I just want to be clear about that part. Thanks.
Mike, your hand is up.
And I just wanted to remind the board, I know that I don't know that I had said it in my presentation. I know I had spoken to one of the commissioners. The deadline for this is next Friday. And so Heather's put a lot of work into putting this together, but if it's going to be in question, it's going to put a really big time crunch on trying to get things completed and finished and finalized before its deadline. I apologize. I hope we bring things to you with a bigger gap of time in the future, but this one is timely.
Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yeah, let's approve it. Let's get it done.
Okay, I'm in agreement. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'm a little bit puzzled that if this was part of the project, it shouldn't be part of the funding gap. It should be part of the cost that it ought to be a reduction in the funding requirement.
Well, what I understood, Paul, now, I understood it, they don't know about any other future funding yet. That is not certain. That is why they're applying for this one. Is that correct, Michael and Heather?
Yes, mostly, yes.
Let me finish my thought. And if we are to get other funds that come in, we can back out these funds, use them for something else, and then backfill with the future funds that aren't here yet. Is that right?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. So was this brought before the DAC last Wednesday?
Yes, it was. It was part of their agenda item. They had the board order request in their packet a week ahead of time. When we brought it up to them, Heather went through an explanation of what we were looking to do. And there were, I'm trying to think of any remarkable comments as far as one way or the other. There seemed to be general support, but there were no comments that I was recalling that had questions about this.
So what was the issue of the match discussed in other parts of the trail?
No, we went through the project scope, like a different version, but similar to what we just did today. And we talked about it, the match coming from SDC dollars, and again, there were no significant comments.
Okay, did you receive any emails from anyone since that meeting on Wednesday with regard to this ask?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, I have. So we have till not this Friday, but next Friday, correct?
To submit the application, yes.
Okay, so I just please ask that we bring this back next Tuesday.
Mike, is that going to give you enough time?
I can't, even if we were authorized, I can't guarantee that we would have it ready in time for filing.
And especially if changes were going to be made. So
Correct.
Commissioner Savas, there are two commissioners who are ready to go for this. I, for one, don't want to see our opportunity missed for the grant funding. But if you're not of a no vote, then you're a no vote. And I think, having staff do whatever you think you want them to do, I still don't understand that. But if you're not here, you're not here. And we could just know that we could lose out on this grant application.
My understanding is the filing deadline is February 25th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what work is there to do that wouldn't happen today or tomorrow, that wouldn't happen next week? I mean, what is, I don't understand what other work there is to do other than submit.
There's a lot of oversight that happens before we hit send on a grant, especially of one this size. Normally we would have at least a week's staff time, because remember, we're understaffed right now. And so it takes time for me to have eyes on it, other department staff to have eyes on it for both proofreading content, making sure it's gone through and been vetted by finance, our finance, to make sure that everything lines out. There's a lot of work that goes into putting these grant applications in, which is one of the reasons why I understand there's requests made to before we apply for grants. I'm not saying we wouldn't be ready. I'm saying it would put a big strain on our staff to try and add that review in a much more reduced fashion.
Yeah, I apologize for not, I would have asked these questions, but I was out of town for a week, so I apologize. So if you can pull it off next week, I just simply ask the courtesy to bring it back next Tuesday.
Heather, your hand is up.
I just want to, and if Mike is clear on this, that's fine. I don't need extra explanation, but I'm not clear on what is needed for next week. So I want to make sure that we're clear so that we know what needs to be done or addressed.
Yeah, I'll contact Everett after this meeting and have just clarify my questions.
Okay.
So Chair Smith, I'm sorry, I'm confused. So will this go on the consent this week or next week?
I don't know. I don't have 3 votes, Gary.
When they're, let's see, actually, I need an attorney's advice in the room. So we have 3 commissioners present, which is a quorum of the board. So does that mean the threshold is 2 out of the 3? No, it's still 3. I know the answer is 3. 3 of you still have to agree, even though 2 of you are not, because 5 of you are the total, 3 of you have to agree. So I guess I'm not hearing consensus to move forward this week, so we'll push it to next week. And that Mike and Heather, you just pretend the board's going to approve it as is, do all the paperwork that you can, that way you can be ready to go, or make any minor adjustments for next week, would be my advice to our team. Okay, we'll bump it to next week's issues and consent agenda.
All righty, thank you. I will now adjourn as a I will now adjourn as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and convene as a Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting.
Excellent. Chair Smith, we will now go to the regular county consent agenda. We'll start with that. Shannon, please bring in Rod Cook. We'll pause just a moment, commissioners, please. All right, hello, Rod. Rod is the Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Are you ready, Rod?
Yes, sir.
Consent agenda request for Health, Housing, Human Services. 1, approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement with the state of Oregon acting through its Oregon Department of Administrative Services to purchase and outfit a van to provide COVID-19 vaccinations in the county through home visits and to assist with the HIV/STI prevention work. Contract is not to exceed $100,000. Funding is provided by the state of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, this revenue grant would purchase a cargo van and custom building the interior to accommodate required equipment. This may also require pre-wiring the interior of the van and providing anchor points for installation of partitions and counters, interior lighting, seating. This van will have specialty equipment installed, such as a refrigerator for vaccine storage. And so that's why the larger cost to this van.
What it's going to be used for, Rod?
They're gonna do vaccinations out of this van. So it'll be a mobile van that can go to different sites and have the vaccines protected and available within the units or wherever it may travel to.
Mark, your hand is up.
Yes, in the last 2 years, the county has done many vaccination efforts. What kind of equipment or vehicle did you use for those?
I'm not sure. This one is really around the HIV work and the STI. So this is, my guess is they probably had a similar van. And this is probably, I don't know what they've used in the past, but they probably had a similar van that had I think the refrigeration is probably the key piece, but the shelving, the bench would be like for seating. So when someone comes in, they can sit and get their vaccination or get their testing, whatever's happening in that mobile van. So it's really just being equipped so it can be used more like an office space that a doctor would have.
And Rodney, that's something that you need, that you're going to use often, even after the COVID goes away?
Yes, because this is actually the emphasis here is on HIV and STIs, and so that's going to be an issue. It's an issue before COVID, and it'll be an issue after COVID in terms of being out there in the field with this type of service.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Savas, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I quickly read over the packet. Sorry, I'm not as prepared as I normally am. So this is a grant, so the funds would be state or federal only, or is it general fund, or is it your fund? I mean, where's all the dollars come from exactly?
This is state funded. There are no general funds involved in this transaction.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems that if every county or health department's gonna buy one of these vans, that's 36 specialized vans across the state. I just wondered if there's a more efficient way, if that's the case, if there's a more efficient way of doing that. But I would just be concerned that it'd be somewhat of a stranded investment at some point where it doesn't really get that utilization. So, but you know, if it's state money, it's still tax dollars, but I just have that concern. Not being critical, seems like a great opportunity to be more accessible and get it at, you know, during this time and after COVID, but it doesn't seem like it would get a lot of use.
Yeah, and we can talk to public health about that, because I think when they do their events, I mean, you might see this at a fair, you might see it at different, as different communities do their annual fairs, you could have this thing available at those type of events. You could have it at special events where we're calling in special populations or hard to reach populations. So I think with the new emphasis on equity and people really looking for opportunity to bring in, giving people full access to our services, this to me, this is could be an excellent way to do that. But if we keep our eyes on it, so we could commit to that in terms of your concern there in terms of utilization of that.
Right. I do know that some other folks were using like portable refrigeration units that were either battery operated or had dry ice that were being used to do that. You know, I know that's a heck of a lot lower expense, but again, if it's not general fund, I'm less concerned, but it's still tax dollars, but I'm not an expert.
Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none, thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2, approval of a revenue professional services agreement with Trillium Community Health Plan for a point of care provider services. There is no maximum value. This is a fee for service agreement. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, this agreement will allow Clackamas County Public Health Division to get reimbursed for medical services provided to Trillium Community Health Plan Incorporated members. So it's a fee for service. So basically, this is a revenue contract with Trillium to us. We'll get reimbursed for anything we do for their members, their membership.
Thumbs up from Mark. Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none. Go
Right.
ahead.
3, approval of an amendment to the Intergovernmental Agreement with Oregon Health and Sciences University for the Oregon Care Coordination Program. Contract maximum value is $324,141, funded with grant funds from Oregon Health and Science University. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Rob.
Yes, this is another grant to us. It would provide a community health nurse to facilitate community-based and family-centered care coordination for children with special health needs Specific services include assessment of needs, coordination of healthcare and other services, and knowledge of local comprehensive services.
Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yes, Rodney, that's for a nurse at $324K for how long of a period?
This extends the term for 1 year. So this is actually adding
That's
89,977.
good. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any objections to this going forward? Seeing none.
4, approval of an amendment to a sub-recipient agreement with Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare for Assertive Community Treatment Program. Amendment adds $14,868.78 to the agreement, increasing the maximum grant value to $133,819.02. Funded through the state of Oregon CMHP funds. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Rob.
Yes, this grant amendment would provide services designed for adults who have not responded well to traditional outpatient mental health services. Services include, but are not limited to, assessments, psychiatric services, case management, employment and housing assistance, family support and education, and substance abuse services.
Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none.
5, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Washington County for the Get Trained to Help Regional Collaborative. The agreement value is $10,000. Funding is provided by Health Share of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this agreement provides the basis of the working relationship between Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties regarding the Get Trained to Help Regional Collaborative. This collaborative works to promote suicide prevention and increase mental health literacy.
Any objection to this going forward? Seeing none. Thank you, Rod.
6, approval of a grant agreement with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, acting by and through its Health, Housing, and Human Services Department for access to $182,475 of the total 2021 Home American Rescue Plan grant, of which the value is $3,649,508. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, and this is basically will pay for administrative costs for staff to engage in consultation and public participation processes, and to identify how Clackamas County intends to distribute and use the funds to address the needs of the home ARP qualifying populations. So this is that part that funds when you want us to go out to community, get community involvement, check with the neighbors, check with the politicians, and all the cities and that type of thing. That this will fund that type of activity.
Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yeah, Rodney, this is funding your existing employees in H3S?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Is that it, Mark?
I guess so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none.
7, approval of a change order between Clackamas County and Ancrom Mosian Associated Architect for the Sandy Health Clinic project. This change order adds $65,600 to the contract for design services for the medical and dental spaces. The new contract total is $380,385.64, funded through the health center's fund balance. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, so I'll read off the 3 things that actually generated this change order. Health centers requested Ancrom Mosian to work with their subcontracted engineer to redesign 10 Eck Road for right-of-way improvements required by Clackamas County. This action is required by the city of Sandy for the certificate of occupancy. The next piece was Ancrom Mosian requires their existing contract to be extended for staff and professional advisement to do this new procedure we need. And lastly, Ancrom Mosian is working with Carver, Oregon Signage Shop to develop 3 required exterior signs. The building signage design in coordination will assist in meeting the city of Sandy's certificate of occupancy. This change order is an increase of 34.4% of the total Ancrom Mosian professional services contract.
Rod, were these requests from Sandy city government coming in at the last minute? They were not anticipated?
They're recent, and this is going to be me looking at the logic of this. If they're coming in as a change order, I'm assuming it was not something that was talked about or were discovered on the front end of the project. And so, and one of them, it's really just the whole intersections needing to be looked at in terms of that. And maybe that's how we're going to have people entering into that building and exiting that building. And so these are things that that construction is not my number one thing, but I think that's where these additional pieces and planning needed to come into play.
Yes, that's unfortunate that the government couldn't have foreseen that remodeling and building this new clinic would have had some traffic issues. Change orders are always more expensive. This is a huge change order. Any objections to moving forward? Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling about this one. I don't understand, Rodney, why the cost of this Tenike Road issue is going to be on the back of the county here and our health clinic project. I don't get that.
Yeah, I can just read my notes, and it says that it's required by Clackamas County. And the other part is that it's an action required by the city of Sandy for the certificate of occupancy. So we're at the end phase of the project, and I believe it's the county and city was asking for those changes, and that's the cost for the redesign and that.
Tenike Road. Now, is Tenike Road a county road? It must intersect with something in the city of Sandy. And Mark, you're probably more familiar with that than I am.
Chair Smith, where the new health clinic is, it's on Highway 26 and Tenike Road that goes down the hill, okay? Right. And so the way you access this clinic is turn off 26, go down Tenike Road about less than 100 yards, and then right on the street there, and then back into the parking lot for the new clinic. But so I don't understand why this project is getting hit with an extra cost for that. And my other question, Rod, is what is this going to do to the remaining fund balance for the health center fund balance? I mean, do they have the money?
Yeah, the money's there, and the money's there to anticipate any changes at the last minute or at the end of the project. And I suspect that I'm not sure how we would not pay or not move forward and finish the project. So we basically have a clinic. We'd be at a standstill with the city and the county, it looks like, if we don't pay these funds and move forward.
And Rodney, is this going to be the last change order on this project? Because we've had several.
I am not willing to put my name on that question because I don't know. But what I do know is that this board and us, we're committed to watching these change orders. We know that is something you've asked us to be serious about. And every time it comes up, and that's why I even do the detailed itemized list for you, because I know you're serious about this, and I'm trying to show you exactly what's happening, so we can all go into this with eyes wide open.
Well, the building, I was by it a few days ago, is looking very nice. I'm looking forward to the grand opening. But watch those change orders, Rodney.
Yeah, I hear you.
Gary Schmidt, your hand is up.
Yes, Shannon, please bring in Dan Johnson. Dan Johnson is going to assist us here on the road question. The change orders, commissioners, that's your authority. If you tell Rod and me no more change orders, then we're done, and we'll make it work with what we have. And Commissioner Scholl, you asked this question last week when this was also on the agenda on a different matter. So commissioners, if that's your direction, we'll freeze it. Would you like us to do that?
Well, I'm beginning to think so, because that's where a lot of these companies make their money on change orders, and it's really criminal. You know, I get very frustrated with this. I see Dan Johnson, you're in the room. You want to address this issue?
Yeah, I love following up when you say frustrated with this. I don't have all these answers, but what I can tell you is the fact I can connect some dots for you. And so essentially when development occurs within cities, they actually contact the county to assess if there's a safety issue or if there is a capacity issue with roads that are under Clackamas County jurisdiction, not necessarily the city of Sandy. I don't know the specifics on this one, but my assumption is the fact that there was some issue based on the additional trips that were going to that clinic that then facilitated the need for some offsite improvements. So,
Okay, that's fine, but didn't they anticipate that in the beginning when they issued the building permit?
I don't have that level of specificity. I can get that back to you.
See, that's the frustrating part. They come in, these local governments, and they hold you hostage. And I hope Clackamas County doesn't engage in these types of practices because it's just not right. Change orders are expensive. Paul, your hand is up.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, would it be, how would that go if Clackamas County was a permitting agency and the developer was a private sector developer? We came in after the fact and say, oh, you need to make this improvements and it costs you more. I mean, would we do that to the private sector, or would they sue us and they would prevail and we would lose? I mean, how would that work in the private sector? Turn the tables.
You're asking good questions. I don't have answers to those questions because I wasn't prepared to speak about this. But one thing that may be under consideration is that the city could have given the county the flexibility to go forward with this particular project, but triggered the improvements to be necessary to be improved prior to the certificate of occupancy has been done. I'd have to go back and talk with Rod about that. Go back and look at the city of Sandy's land use determination. So.
Well, it sounds like you need to do some more research to get the answer as opposed to a coulda, woulda, right?
Well, I know one thing that happened somewhat early in the project was they found that the oil was contaminated. And so, I mean, the soil was contaminated. So that is one example of starting the project and getting in there and finding something you didn't know existed in the first place. And I'm not saying that's what this particular change order is about, but I'm saying as they were doing that project, that was one of the things that no one anticipated, but it had to be dealt with, or we were going to be stopped in our tracks in terms of moving forward with the clinic.
So we before we got this property, we didn't do a soils test.
Commissioner, I don't know. This is I don't know.
Well, this clinic
I'm sure environmental. Go ahead.
The clinic has been there a long time. This is just a remodel, correct?
No, this is a new build.
We bought this property not too long ago.
I see. Thank you.
So, this goes back to my other argument about when we acquire something that we do all the due diligence, soil, all that stuff, so we don't get into these situations. Make sure that's added to the list of the checklist of acquisition of properties. I made this clear along the way, whether it's oil or contamination from chemicals, or really it's just the hydrology where it's really, really wet soil. There's a lot of risk out there, and it sounds like we're absorbing that, and we should know in advance before we buy a property.
I agree.
Commissioners, what do you want to do about this request?
Well, if this goes to the consent agenda, let's make sure that the word gets out that this will be the last change order for that project.
Commissioner Savas, do you have a comment on that?
Well, I guess we'll talk about it on Thursday. Hopefully have more than 3 commissioners present on Thursday.
So we're going to move forward with this. I don't see any huge objections, but Gary, change orders are a problem. Let's somehow address it. No more change orders on this project, Rod. Period. Peter, done.
Rod, let everyone know we're done. This is it. And if there's something that does come up, we'll have to go before the board and they will make the call if they will approve an exception or not. Okay. So we'll have this, we'll go forward on the consent agenda for this Thursday on this item.
Thank you.
All right, very good. We're still on H3S. Number 8, approval of an amendment to a personal services agreement with Project Access Now for referral partnership services for Clackamas Health Centers Division. This amendment adds $2,667 for a new contract not to exceed value of $10,667. Funding is through fee for service revenue. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, in this amendment, the contractor provides referral partnership services for health centers by linking low-income and uninsured patients with a network of volunteer health care providers and organizations provide free care.
Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none.
Number 9, approval of an amendment to a federal sub-recipient grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for emergency shelter services. The amendment adds $25,535.50 for a new contract total value of $108,362.50, funded through the Federal Department of Homeland Security Emergency Food and Shelter Program. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, approval of this sub-recipient grant would continue to provide emergency shelter bed night services to serve unhoused individuals and families in Clackamas County who are survivors of domestic violence, and connect these individuals and families with permanent housing and other positive exit destinations.
Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none. Thank you, Rod.
Okay, thank you, Rod, very much. All right, next, Shannon, please bring in Elizabeth Comfort for finance. Jeff Jorgensen, I assume he's also part of this, so we'll wait a moment, please, for that transfer, commissioners. Okay, we have Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Jeff Jorgensen, Facilities Director. Item 1, consent agenda for finance, approval of a Clackamas County Sheriff's Office Charbonneau Boathouse with Charbonneau Country Club lease agreement. The value of this 5-year, 6-month lease is $17,905.21. It is funded with county general funds, and they are budgeted county general funds. Jeff, can you speak to this one?
Good morning, Gary. Yes, thank you. The boathouse is being requested to have, so we have marine services on the upper Willamette River. It's at the Charbonneau Country Club, which is just east of I-5. And it's a boathouse that's 1,624 square feet, can handle a boat, a couple of wave runners, even possibly 2 boats. But the sheriff's office has been working this for quite a bit last year, then took over negotiations on that. But it is for 5 years, or 5 years and 6 months. Total amount is $17,000. So it's providing those vital services on the upper Willamette River.
Any objections from commissioners on this? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Item 2, approval of a Clackamas County supplemental budget resolution for fiscal year 2021-2022 under 10%. So this would be a consent agenda item. This is for the March 3rd, 2022 business meeting. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. This is our 3rd scheduled supplemental budget before you, and this follows the Oregon Local Budget Law, ORS 294, and it is under 10%. The supplemental budget has been increased from the original posted from $680,414 to $830,414. This is comprised of 5 items, actually 6 now, with an addition of $150,000 to recognize lottery revenue for economic development for the Business Recovery Assistance Program. So we do want to ask for you to recognize and allow for the addition of that for a total of $830,414. There are several items in numbers 1, 2, and 3, and 5 that relate to our Arpa revenue, recognizing those dollars for your approved expenditures. And then also we have 2 items in number 4 and 6 on the worksheet that recognize fund balance and program those beginning balances for this current fiscal year. And I'm available for questions.
Any questions or objections for Elizabeth on this item? Seeing none. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. And again, this item will be on March 3rd, so 2 weeks ahead. All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, Shannon, please bring in Dan Johnson. We'll do transportation and development consent next. Wait just a moment for Dan. All right, Dan Johnson is back. This is a consent agenda request, transportation and development, approval to apply for a regional flexible funds allocation grant for the I-205 multi-use path gap refinement plan. The application requests $935,884 in grant funds. The matching funds of $96,115.29 will be provided from Clackamas Road Use Fund. The total project cost is $1,031,999.29. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Dan.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary. Every 3 years, the Metro Council decides how to spend the regional allotment of federal transportation dollars, also known as the regional flex funds. In this cycle, DTD is seeking funds to develop a design solution for the 1 mile gap in the I-205 multi-use path. This project is in Clackamas County's TSP as a tier 1 project. So we're seeking funding to advance the design on a number of options. This 1 mile gap extends between Herbert Court and Highway 212 in Clackamas County. And the plan will engage community members and stakeholders to develop an alignment and design solutions for the gap. The year-long study will assess a minimum of 3 route alternatives and result in 30% design plans for a preferred alignment. We respectfully request approval of the Department of Transportation Development application for this grant in the amount specified by the administrator. And also there in the packet attached, there's a letter of support we would request be executed by the board. I want to make sure we're clear. Essentially, this effort essentially cues a further discussion up around further grant options. This is not a Clackamas County funded project, but essentially a project we would be looking to go out for future grant funding for once we have more specificity around these design options that are out there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Shull.
Dan, I know these studies are getting expensive, but $1,031,000 for this study, 1 year study?
So the dollars are 2 things. One, they're a study, and then they're 30% design. So it takes it up to that initial level of design. Then that design would then need to be taken through to like 1690 and requests for or plans for construction, et cetera. But that isn't covered through this. These are the dollar amounts we are seeing for this kind of work. And again, keep in mind, it's 3 alternatives that they're looking at in that study as a whole.
And that 30% engineering, that's going to be outsourced?
Yes.
What about the letter you asked to be signed by the board? Is that right? Not all board members are here.
Correct. It's basically a letter of support that was in your packet that would come from the chair. So it basically would be the board authorizing you as the chair to sign on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners as a letter of support.
Are you okay with that since not all 5 are present today? I see no objection to that. Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll add to consent agenda. Finally, County Council. Shannon, please bring in Jeff Munns. We'll wait for Jeff. All right, Jeff Munns, Assistant County Counsel. This is a County Council consent agenda request, approval of a settlement agreement and execution of a quit claim deed in the lawsuit Jerry A. Wrench, trustee, versus Clackamas County. No funds are being paid in this settlement. Jeff, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is a lawsuit that we were involved in due to an old easement that we received in 1910. And the terms of that easement provided that if we did not use it for a public road for 3 years, the property should revert to the adjoining property owners. So the easement ceased to be valid in 1913, but now it's here before you today. It's taken quite some time, obviously, for the adjoining property owners to need it back. So what we've done is agree with them. They can have it back because obviously our easement was no longer valid. And we're doing that with a quit claim deed to transfer the property back to them, a settlement agreement to resolve all matters related to the lawsuit. And once this is signed, then the lawsuit will be dismissed and this will be taken care
of. Commissioner Shull, excuse me, your hand is up.
I recommend we have that settlement agreement signed.
Thank you, Commissioner Shull. I agree. Seeing no further objections. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Jeff, stay here. Thank you, Commissioners. That ends the consent agenda request. All of these will go on this Thursday's business meeting, except for the exceptions you've made, or the ones that are for the March 3rd business meeting. Okay, because Jeff's here, I'm going to jump on the regular agenda down to proposed Hoodlum Park District Board Order review. This is on your business meeting for this Thursday. This is a chance for Jeff to give a high-level update, answer any questions you may have before you make your final decision this Thursday on the proposed Hoodlum Park District. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the final step in this process before it goes to the ballot is the board needs to basically sign an order, either accepting, modifying, or rejecting the petition on the Hoodlum Park District. And so after your vote last week, or had the direction then from the board to put together this order for you, there's one small change that I made in this order, which is why I also included an order to reject, since I don't have your answer on this, is that in our discussions last week, there's a lot of discussion about the 97028 area code and then the area of rhododendron. The map that was submitted by the petitioners included all of the property, the rhododendron area up to where Kiwanis Camp Road leaves Highway 26. After our meeting and a lot of emails with some of the petitioners, it looks like a number of the properties in the rhododendron area are in fact 97028. That wasn't reflected in the map that we had reviewed at the time that you voted. So what is now before you is some minor modification that we would remove all of the 97028 area code other than those areas in the rhododendron region. And so updated the map, updated legal description to reflect that basically, as we discussed last time, all the property east of where Kiwanis Camp Road leaves Highway 26 would be removed from the proposed district. So it would be Government Camp, Cascade Summit, and Wapanesha. But all of the areas from Sandy all the way up to Rhododendron would remain in the proposed district. And that's what I've put in this, the first draft order to modify the petition and approve this and move it to the ballot. So just that one small change from what we discussed last week, but then this order would adopt some findings that you found that the areas of Government Camp, Wapanesha, and Cascade Summit would not be benefited by the Hoodlum Park District, and that the proposed district would have 5 board members to govern it under ORS Chapter 266. And then there's the map attached that would show the new boundary for the park district, as well as the legal description that's necessary for this process to move forward. So with that, are there any questions?
So the information that I read so far did not mention the taxing rate. Now, aren't we asking 2 questions here? We're asking for the formation of a district, and we're asking to establish a tax.
That would all be in one question. The question that would go to the ballot would be, get down to that in the order. Basically, shall a Hoodlum Park District be formed with a maximum tax rate of 67 cents per thousand, and then by operation of law, we would have 5. I guess this also says there would be 5 positions for this Parks District, but that's not in the question that the voters would determine. It would be, do they want to form a Parks District with a maximum rate of 67 cents per thousand with the boundaries that we specified in this order?
So we're approving at a maximum rate of 67 cents a thousand because, I saw a staff report that it's still listed to 57 cents per thousand. So I want to make sure on what we're authorizing the Hoodlum Park folks to do on this.
Right.
Jeffrey, can you help me with that?
Yeah. Since the petition specified a maximum rate of 67 cents per thousand, that's what this would do. When they calculated their feasibility study, they used 57 cents per thousand so that they would be using something less than their maximum. And that was what was submitted as part of the petition. But given that they asked us to establish this park district with a maximum rate of 67 cents per thousand, and we don't really see authority in the statute for you to change that, that's what it would do. And then the board of the Hoodlum Parks District, if it is established, would make that determination as to how much of that to assess and, take it from there essentially.
Okay. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, it might seem like a minor nuance, but I think it's and I kind of said this the day we approved going forward with this a couple weeks ago, and that is that the under state law, under our Constitution, the citizens have the right to petition to form a taxing district for a multiple of reasons, and so it's their ask and their dollar amount that they have put together, and we are simply putting on the ballot for the residents within that area or the voters within that area to say yes or no at that particular rate. So it seems like our role is more procedural, and it's not really that we are doing the ask. We're just acknowledging and doing the due diligence required by state law to meet the ask by the petitioners.
Gary, is there any action that we need to take today on this?
No, this is just briefing you for this Thursday, but this Thursday you will make the decision at the business meeting.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Back to the top of the agenda. Next, Shannon, please bring in Dave DeVore and Duke Dexter. Commissioners, update on Clackamas Broadband Exchange. Broadband update, especially on the ARPA funds you have last year you allocated for broadband purposes. There's a memo in your packet on how staff plans to spend that 10 million you have authorized, and seeking your input kind of before they hit the go button. So Dave DeVore is the Interim Director of Technology Services. Duke Dexter is the Clackamas Broadband Exchange Manager. Dave, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Smith, Administrator Schmidt. Dave DeVore here from Tech Services. I have Duke Dexter, our project manager here. As always, we're happy to give you an update on where we are on our ARPA CBX project. I would like to do a shout out to the ARPA team that put this together, especially with Nancy Bush and Elizabeth Comfort. That group has done a lot of hard work to make all these ARPA projects feasible, and we're actually making some good progress. So we'd like to give you an update today. One point just to make sure, given the size of our project, a lot of the issues around getting supply chain, especially fiber in time, and the fact that we want to make sure we don't duplicate effort with our partner ISPs. We've broken this project into several phases. As you know, we started phase 1 several months ago. It's moving along well. Duke's going to give you an update where we are. And we're now prepared to start phase 2 and start moving along, which will be the larger of the phases. Phase 3, we're not going to get to for probably another year or so. We want to see how the phase 1 and 2 get done, what money we have left over, and where the ISPs land, so we don't do any extra fiber runs where we don't need to. So given that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Duke and have him give you an update.
Go ahead, Duke.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. We provided a list of the 3 phases and then kind of a 4th one, which is an out. I want to explain real quickly what that out represents. So we were looking at different areas. You'll see there was kind of listed as East 2, East 1, and these were areas that we were looking for expansion in different conversations with existing ISPs. Rather than us build that area out, they're going to expand their own network or update their existing network to be able to meet the minimum thresholds of download and upload speeds. So we were able to take those areas and then drop that down into an out area. So with our work with some local ISPs, we are seeing that we are expanding access for a larger group of people, more than the $10.1 million that has been allocated to this project. With that, so going back to phase 1, this is a group of projects that we brought to you 6 months ago. All of those, with the exception of Lolo Pass Road, are all somewhere in design, engineering, build out, and connection phase. So a good example is Kiwanis phase 1, Road 35A and B. That middle mile, the backbone, has been built. We've already created 9 drops from that. And I think from that, 3 people are already receiving service from these dollars from the ARPA project. That number would be higher if it wasn't for this pesky snow that kind of kept falling in that area and really hurt our ability to get out on these roads and be able to deliver services. But as we see this warmer weather, we're going to get back on top of that. Phase 2, you can see we've listed another 5 projects there. And where we're at with those is we are ready to hire engineering and design firms to get out, review the areas, utility poles, the home sites, road conditions, just be able to get out there and come up with the design phases for those. Once that complete, then we'll start building. Phase 3 is just kind of some areas that we've highlighted at this point to look for expansion of our network. I also want to give you an update. We have ordered materials, so in the form of conduit, splice cases, distribution boxes, fiber cable, strand, utility pole, products. A lot of that has already been ordered. And so it's either arrived or en route. And so an example is some of the fibers come in, but some isn't due until like June or July. So we've ordered it. We're just waiting on its arrival. So with that, this is what we're looking at and what we're kind of proceeding with.
Good, that's a good report, Duke. How much does it cost people to sign up once we lay this fiber for them? You said we've already had some connections. What's the cost to the private sector?
So the initial sign up is going to range anywhere from $100 to $300, and then their monthly fee is $64.95 for our service, and that meet or exceeds the government standards of 100 megabits per second download and 100 megabits per second upload.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners on this? Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, Dave and Duke, good morning. I'm looking at your CBX ARPA phases for broadband expansion. Okay, now, again, what we're doing here now is we're pushing out broadband to places where no commercial entity dared to tread because of cost, okay? There's one thing on phase 2 that jumps out, and I'm not liking it. Boitano Road, Sandy, 78 houses, 658K total, $8,437 per house. Okay, and down on phase 3, Oral Hall Road and Coleman Road, 101 houses, $1 million, $9,901 per house. Now, on those two projects, that's just those two is 1.6 million plus, okay, for relatively few houses. At some point in time, common sense says we cut it off. We cut it off. And for example, you out in the bottom here, an alternate, you've already got some 5 areas called out where the cost per house in Mint Lake, $32,000 per house, in Viola in Estacada, $57,000 to get it per house, 6 houses. So there's some places in the county that all the money in the world cannot get to reasonably. Mm-hmm. So what I'm suggesting here this morning is that Boitano Road be stripped out of your phase 2, and that Oral Hall be stripped out of your phase 3, leaving easing up 1.6 million plus to go back to ARPA for redistribution. Please consider that.
I'm not sure what the procedure for that would be. I mean, we could definitely adjust our scope. I need to check to find out what the procedure would be for redistribution of funding. Would it be go back to other options, or would it go back into the ARPA fund itself? I'm not sure what that is.
Well, Dave,
I don't either. So go ahead, Mark.
Dave, your chart already shows all the houses in the county that are you want to try to get to, and so we're not going to be able to get to every house. Some houses are going to have to just go with dish or whatever, but at some point, Dave and Duke, I believe that common sense says instead of spending $99,900 to get wired to a house for a total of $1 million on Oral Hall Road and Coleman Road, that we rethink that $1 million of ARPA bucks, bring it back and use it somewhere else. And same thing for the $8,437 per house for the Boitano Road in Sandy. I mean, I don't want constituents calling me and saying, "Hey, Mark, how come you voted to push out a $10,000 per house wire deal?" Anyway, please, other commissioners, let's think about that. Thank you.
There's a couple of hands up. First, I'm going to call on Gary Schmidt.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Schull, for that feedback. So the board has already authorized $10.1 million for this broadband work. Phase 2 on the chart, that's where you have a chance to give feedback. So if there's something you'd like off that phase 2 list, now's a chance for you to tell staff, because they're out there buying this equipment now. So that's really where your feedback stands. If you want to change the decision and allocate less than 10 million, you have every right to do that. And yes, we'd return it to the ARPA dollars that you would then reallocate to another project. So really today, the question is phase 2. If you want to make any change to something listed in phase 2, please tell us that today.
Yeah, there's a couple more hands up. I'll just say it is expensive to put broadband in these areas. And that's why the private sector isn't doing it. This money basically is free money to us. We made the commitment to serve hugely underserved areas. And I looked at the costs, Mark, I was really a bit shocked too. But so we're going to say, oh, person, you're not deserving because your cost is much higher than somebody else. I don't think that's equitable either. Commissioner Savas, your hand is up.
Yeah, well, yeah. So in the ARPA legislation, broadband is specifically spelled out in this legislation, and all the while knowing that it is expensive to push broadband out in rural areas. And we also know that in areas in Clackamas County where there is no service or there is no broadband, it's not being pushed out because of the cost. I do have, through several discussions over the years and recently with staff, know that they're looking for the lowest hanging fruit, most affordable connections they can make for the biggest bang for the buck. So hitting the number of homes, Mark, that you cited in there is an opportunity of economies of scale. Granted, I agree, it's a lot of money per household, but these dollars were specifically somewhat anticipating really just that. I imagine maybe in some other parts of the country it might be a little bit cheaper because of labor and all the other things, but it doesn't come as a surprise to me. I think perhaps the other areas where I am, as we go out in the future, if we go beyond this in other areas of the county that don't have service, I expect it will be much higher. And if there's federal assistance designed to specifically do that in grants in anticipation of those particular costs, we ought to seize that opportunity if those federal funds are available for that specific purpose like these are. Thank you.
When I was in a meeting with Congressman Kurt Schrader several weeks ago, and a new funding package that's coming down from Congress, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which one. He talked about middle mile, and staff has checked that out. And there's going to be some, I think, additional funds available for the middle mile construction exactly for this. Yes, it's expensive, but do we tell these people, you're too expensive, so we're going to ignore you? This is money from the federal government that's allowing for this. And usually when you're a trailblazer and you're the first entity or person to do something, your costs are probably going to be higher than having add-ons as we move forward. I think that's, unfortunately, it's the way it works. Commissioner Schull, your hand is up.
Yes, okay. So we go with phase 2 as presented here by Dave and Duke, and phase 3. Dave and Duke, okay. Let's say we build that out at the cost that you have on your chart here. Does that mean at some point in time you're going to come back and ask for money to do Mint Lake at $32,000 per house, or Viola Road in Estacada at $57,000 per house? Because if you do, Dave and Duke, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Thank you.
Believe me,
Duke,
Duke, we will see. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, Duke and I will have heart attacks with you.
Okay.
The purpose of the alternates there is to make sure we're tracking what is out there, and also to know where the ISPs are going to be going as well. The reason we were pushing phase 3 off is because there's going to be a lot of questions answered in the next year or so. That will be like, where did the ISPs go? What other grant money came out? What did we end up with actual money left over from phase 2? that will then make the decision, okay, where do we go or not go for phase 3? We're just trying to track them right now. Phase 2, as far as we're going to be going in the build right now. Phase 3 will not be decided for some time because there's too many unknown answers right now, including the questions you're asking. Do we put a farmhouse at 100 grand out there on versus something else? And so we're waiting on anything from phase 3 for some time until we get there to make those decisions, working with the commissioners to determine what is the best way to go. We're just right now working on phase 2 because that is our biggest bang for a buck to get those additional 1,600 homes in place.
Okay, Dave, thank you.
I hope that makes sense, because we agree with you. We've had arguments in here about, do we go after this area or do we go after that area? And it gets expensive, and we are trying to go for the lowest hanging fruit that was put earlier.
Okay, Dave, well, just make sure I don't lose any more hair over this, okay?
Yeah, Duke, you had your hand up. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just going to explain to Commissioner Scholl, the list he's actually going off of was from an earlier iteration. As we initially got the ARPA funding or knew about the ARPA funding, we started kind of doing a huge catch-all project, like where could we go? You know, what could we expand? That's not the latest copy that we sent for this presentation.
Well, where is it?
Duke,
Just a minute, Mark, just a minute. Where is the latest copy? Are the numbers changed on it?
No, we just removed some of those. So he mentioned Mint Lake and some other places. I think when we originally came for phase 1, there was a West Wilsonville in there. We removed that from the list. Right. So I apologize. I thought for this presentation, it was the most current up-to-date list that we had.
Okay.
Phase 1 and phase 2 are correct.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Commissioner Scholl, your hand is up.
Yeah, the chart that I'm looking at here is on your 2 February memo from Dave. So that
phase 1 and phase 2 and the other phases have been modified, correct?
Phase 1 and phase 2 are correct on here. Phase 3 and the alternates are falling off as either we find them too expensive or they are being done by the ISPs.
Okay.
But they're not up for any kind of discussion of being done at this point.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Gary, are we taking action on this today or what are we doing?
Your only action is if you have feedback on phase 2. So I'll ask again, commissioners, are you okay with what's listed in phase 2? If you do not, this is your last chance to say something because staff is moving forward to purchase fiber for these areas. Phase 2, are you okay? I'm looking for a thumbs up. You don't need to vote. I'm seeing 2. Mark, can you live with it? Maybe.
Mark, you object? Yes, of course you object. If we don't approve it today, we'll bring it back next week and it will go, Mark.
Well, I mean, come on. Let's. I just am trying to gag down $8,400 for a house on phase 2, but if the other commissioners want it, let's go ahead.
I agree the costs are high, but it's a hugely underserved area. What are you going to do?
Well, you get a heart attack.
Are you going to tell those folks they're not worthy because they're too remote and
it's not a matter of being not worthy. The other folks down here in the alternate, $57,000 per house, they're worthy. It's not a matter of not being worthy. It's a matter of spending dollars that are at some point in time. It's not a good idea.
Okay, we're not doing the 57,000 today. We're just talking about phase 2. Correct?
I know, and that's the reasoning I'm using. At some point, it gets too expensive.
Paul, your hand is up.
Yeah, I would just go back to, doing the best we can and getting the lowest hanging fruit, the lowest cost per household and using these federal funds and leveraging as best we can. These opportunities do not come very often. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
So I know we got to bite the bullet somehow, but we are impacting positively a significant number of homes and households. So I see that as the benefit and the upside. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Salas. So do we have enough thumbs up to move forward on this?
No, you don't. So what I propose is this: either we bring it back, or we take off that one project off phase 2. Dave, take off the Botoino project and just remove it for now.
I'm going to move Gary. Gary, I'm going to move. We're going to bring it back next week.
Okay. All right. We'll bring it back next week. So Dave and Duke, hold. If you have an updated sheet, send me an updated memo for the board, please. Okay. Thank you very much, Dave and Duke. All right, commissioners, we have 40 minutes left. There's a hard stop at noon, and we have some pretty meaty topics left on the agenda. So I'll ask you to respectfully do your best to keep moving. Let's do supportive housing services financial update next. Shannon, please bring in Rod Cook and Vahid Brown. Commissioner Savas, you asked for this, I think 2 weeks ago. There's a memo in your packet. We had to bump this from last week, but we're here today. So there was a very thorough memo. I appreciate staff's work on that. So happy to answer any questions you have, commissioners, on where we're at on our supportive housing services efforts. We'll wait just a moment here for staff to come in the room. All right, Rod, anyone else besides you and Vahid on this?
Nope, it's just Vahid, myself.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so we're here today to discuss the February 8th memo to you regarding the financial update on the supportive housing services funds received to date, and to provide you with any additional information you may need to move forward with requesting an additional $5 million advance from Metro. The additional $5 million will give county the capacity to procure additional services, build our infrastructure to meet the board-approved local implementation plan. Vahid Brown is with us today, Supportive Housing Services Manager, and he's here to walk us through the memo and answer any additional questions you may have for us today. So Vahid.
Thank you, Rod. Good morning, commissioners. As Gary said, you have the detailed memo in your packets. I'm happy to summarize the memo and walk through it briefly, or just move directly to questions, bearing in mind Gary's time sensitivity. So I'll take your direction. If you'd like me to sort of very briefly summarize the memo, I can do that.
Yeah, just briefly go ahead with that, Vahid.
You got it. So the memo, per your request, you wanted to kind of see where we were at in terms of funding and spend down from the initial disbursements, or the disbursements to date as of the end of January, as well as the first advance of $5 million, and sort of look at the committed funds and actual expenditures as of now, as well as obligations through executed contracts and staff and so forth. So as you very briefly, there's $6.28 million in total funding that's come in through collected revenue disbursements to the county, as well as the first $5 million advance. As of the end of January, we did get another January revenue disbursement yesterday. So this is not reflected. Yesterday's disbursement of $368,000 to Clackamas County is not reflected in your memo, but I can add all this up if you would like to sort of reflect it as of today. The actual expenditures as of the end of December are reflected at $1.05 million, with the estimated financial obligations through the balance of the fiscal year of 4.9. So the total expenditures through the fiscal year of 5.96 million, leaving a difference with respect to the funding received and the funding obligated of $313,000. There's also some information in your packet with respect to the initial projections used by county staff for the disbursement of tax revenues from the measure collections. As you can see on figure 2, the orange bars are what were originally projected. The blue bars are actual receipts. And again, that we could add another blue bar at the end of that, reflecting yesterday's disbursement of another very large blue bar of $366,000. Again, outpacing our initial projections quite significantly. And there's additional information on the last page with respect to the goals of the plan. So these are the year 1 goals in our local implementation plan, showing households to be served in various supportive housing services programming, where we are with our projected progress given the executed contracts we have in place now. And you can see that we've made really significant progress in supportive housing services, case management, and long-term rent assistance voucher issuances. We have some significant gaps also in our plan with respect to outreach and shelter and eviction prevention. So those are areas we've not yet been able to fund programming given the limitations of funding. And there's also some information in this memo about our next procurement activities, which would be a regional request for programmatic qualifications, which is being scored now, will be completed early March. So in early March, we will have a large pool of qualified vendors that can provide all of these range of services that we will be moving into allocations of new contracts, and those will be coming back to you. So the question of the $5 million advance will affect our ability to further the progress of those goals or not. So that's the question before you today.
Okay, I have some comments I want to make on this, but Commissioner Savas, your hand is up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm inclined to move forward with the steps it takes to initiate the advance and the paperwork agreements with Metro to get the advance. As far as the details of how we program that, I think in, the respective limited time we have here today, I think as long as we have that door open and may have that conversation with the entire board in the near future, I'd love to do that. But I want to make sure we get the ball rolling on the advance. And that should give us time to get to at least to the April point where I'm hoping we just see a significant bump from the 300,000 we're approximately averaging right now in this particular year. 2022. So I know it's been slow. I know it has been, just painfully slow as far as what those amounts roll into. And by that time, we'll actually see, have a better idea where the projections go beyond the estimated 12 or 14 million dollars of the low side estimate of what those revenues are. But I think we need to at least be prepared and start ramping up to that lowest number, the most conservative number, I think. And so this bridge funding of 5 million will help us get there.
I'm very concerned that we're extending ourselves too much with this bridge funding. I'm not going to support it today. We can bring it back for a full commission discussion. And if commissioners want to pass it at that time. I had a lot of heartburn, as you know, doing the first $5,000 loan to Metro. I don't trust that the tax revenues are going to come in. Paul, like you said, hopefully we'll get more than 360 or 50,000 per month on this. I just don't see it. We are doing a lot. It's no reflection on the work, Vahid, that you're doing. It's no reflection on the work that Rod is doing. I just don't trust it. I can't go there today. And so far, I have seen nothing new to say that we need to start ramping up and then owe Metro money for tax revenues that have not been realized. I can't do that. Commissioner Shaw, you have any comments?
Well, Vahid, in your briefing here, you talk about navigating people into permanent housing out of the 580, I think, that you're currently providing housing for. Is there any way that can be expedited to relieve the pressure on new funding?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Commissioner Shaw.
Okay. You need money to get you through the end of the year, okay, to support your 580 current folks that you're supporting, right? Okay, what I'm asking is, in order to reduce the pressure on you for new funding, is there any way that the number of people that you're trying to get into permanent housing can be increased or sped up in some way?
Not without more money. So the more folks that are navigated to housing that requires staff to do that work, that case management work, and to provide permanent housing requires a commitment of a rental contract through the Regional Long-Term Rent Assistance Program. So every additional household that we place in housing, or every anything we would do to speed the pace of placements, would add costs to our budget. So that would require further contracts or contract amendments.
Okay, thank you.
This is not proceeding forward today. Paul, your hand's up, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say this whole journey with the supportive housing services measure has been pretty painful. We had some tremendous surprises along the way. dating back a year ago, practically. So, you know, I think we're in a position trying to honor the intent of what the voters supported measure and trying to get these services out. We certainly have what I anticipated really being a funding situation where in order to maintain the current level of funding that we currently have, that we would be at this point where we need some bridge funding. You know, and having the way the agreement is with Metro on the advance, I'm pretty confident that the security is really those resources. And come June come June of this year, if it's not coming in at the lowest number the Metro auditor anticipated, that being 14 million and as high as 32 being on the high side, I think we're taking the most modest approach here we can and leveraging every dollar we can. We couldn't get this $5 million bridge gap funding until the agreements were signed, and that was just recently they were signed. So to me, it's imperative financially that we take the next step, and we can do that next week. That's perfectly fine, and we can have a greater discussion when needed as far as how we program those dollars out going forward.
Okay, we'll bring this up next week. Gary, what's up next?
All right, thank you, Rod and Vahid, for that. Next, Emergency Preparedness Council Agenda Review. Shannon, please bring in Daniel Neibauer. Commissioners, this Thursday, you are having your first meeting of the county's Emergency Preparedness Council. Thank you to your leadership, Chair Smith, for creating this council. Almost a year ago, we finally have formed the council. The first meeting is this Thursday. All of you are attending. So Daniel just wants to quickly review the agenda and answer any questions you may have about the meeting. Daniel is Interim Director of Disaster Management. Go ahead, Daniel.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, just want to look briefly at the agenda with you. I'm doing some administrative matters in terms of discussing the bylaws, potentially talking about officers for the group, then discussing 5 areas of interest, and also asking for some advice on public alerts outreach and sign-up strategy. Since I have Resolution Services will be assisting in the facilitation, and I have met with them since, and they have recommended potentially removing the nomination of the officers until a later meeting to allow for more time for council members to introduce and kind of ask questions and go over that information. So I think that is a great recommendation, particularly if we want people to nominate themselves or others. It probably is beneficial to allow them more time for introductions. So we will be sending this out along with links to all of the council members, so they have this plus a little bit of supplemental information for them to be able to review before the meeting.
Hey, I was going to ask who is going to facilitate the meeting. Thank you for that. What one person will be chairing this meeting? Daniel, do we know?
I will be kind of serving in that until we get a formal chair to do so.
So what, is this just informational, or will this group be making decisions on Thursday?
They won't be making decisions. They will be providing advice at this point on public alerts. So really more information on getting them set up, and then hopefully future meetings, as they have select their areas of interest, they will be able to provide increased amount of advice. But we do want to, since fire season is approaching quicker than I would like, we want to make sure that we've got our public alerts registry as complete and accurate as possible. And we would love to get some input on how we can reach out to community members that have been reluctant to sign up or perhaps need to update their information.
Got it. Thank you for that. Any other questions for Daniel on the Emergency Preparedness Council? I look forward to seeing commissioners doing this next Thursday. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Daniel. Next, Shannon, please bring in Sue Hildick and Chris Lyons. Next is 2022 Congressionally Directed Spending Priorities, or Earmarks. There's a memo in your packet. You did discuss this already in January when you did your legislative agenda review. Staff has made some modifications and is seeking your further feedback and potential direction today. Sue is the Director of Public and Government Affairs. Chris is Government Affairs Manager. I'll wait just a second for them to get in the room. All right, Chris and Sue are here. Whoever's going first, go ahead, please.
Hello, Commissioners. So we're coming back to you for further direction on the congressionally directed spending priorities for the county for 2022. On January 5th, you approved a vetting list for us, and we have been doing our due diligence on those projects. We're really looking for those that are in the sweet spot of readiness and congressional interest. We're coming back to you today with 2 recommended projects, and then what we call pipeline projects. We have 7 others that are still in the pipeline and working their way forward. So Chris is going to outline those recommendations.
Good morning, commissioners. So as Sue said, we base these on both readiness and congressional support and interest. And the 2 that rose to the top are the Hillside Park Master Plan Improvements investments. You are familiar with this project in Milwaukee. This is Schrader's district and would be complemented by funding from the supportive housing measure. And then the second one is the Clackamas Watershed Protection Project. This was a project that we had focused on last year as well, dealing with the Boring Lagoon and getting that decommissioned. Right now, it is putting some wastewater into the Clackamas River, and so there are some major needs there. The other projects that we had previously identified that we have been vetting, and there are 7 of those, I believe, those remain in the pipeline for alternative funding sources, which could include sources currently available this year, or could be opportunities for a federal earmark next year as these projects are further refined. So I will leave it at that and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris and Sue, for the presentation. Gary, what action is required of us? Do we vote on this today?
If you're willing, a motion to approve the list, please. Yes.
Any comments from either Paul or Mark on this presentation today? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move ahead on the earmarks.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas has moved for approval of the earmarks as presented, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Thank you. I'll just say, keep us updated on the ones who are on the waiting list. At least one of those may move up quite quickly, from what I understand, and I hope it does. And so, Shannon, please take the poll, please.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much, commissioners and staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue and Chris. The board town hall topics, commissioners, we're going to hold until all 5 commissioners are here. So we're going to pull that item for today. Next, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, February 17, 2022. It's a 10 a.m. business meeting. You'll have a board discussion item on the proposed Hoodlum Park District. You have a previously approved land use issue, reviewing the comprehensive plan map amendment, zone change, and partition application. You have a public hearing on Crescent Road transfer to the city of Sandy that you approved at issues back in January. And then you have all the items from today for consent agenda. If you have any questions on any item, would you please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff will answer it for you. Next, advisory boards and commissions. Shannon, go ahead, please.
We have 2 more ABCs for you today. First is the Veterans Advisory Council, staffed by Health, Housing, and Human Services, Social Services Division. It currently has 8 openings on their commission due to resignations, and a recent bylaw revision resulted in increased membership. The recommendations for 3 of those positions are Betty Fish Ferguson, Gregory Freetage, and Janet Brayman.
Commissioners, do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas, for approval of this ABC, and Commissioner Scholl seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Shannon, what's up next?
Next is the County Parks Advisory Board, staffed by the Business and Community Services Department. They currently have 3 openings on their board due to member resignations and open positions. The recommendations are for Charles Parker, Louise Lopez, and Tom Hester.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved for approval for the County Parks Board, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 3-0. What's up next?
Thank you, Shannon. You're back on schedule, commissioners. Thank you. The last item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Savas, would you like to start first?
Sure. I need to give you all an update. There's a lot of things moving on the tolling issue. And I got my briefing late yesterday afternoon from staff. Thursday morning, there's another JPAC meeting. The pause on approving the MTIP amendments, the RTP amendments has been pushed to March. However, there's significant discussion and discussions that are happening at a number of committees and so forth. I've been talking to mayors around the region and in Clackamas County. A lot of attention has been drawn to this. We had our Clackamas County legislators also send in a letter in alignment with what we are doing and what we're asking for. And we're simply not getting or seeing any signs of a response or an effort to respond in a way that answers really these important questions. This morning, I happened to look back at the 2018 letter the previous Board of Commissioners sent to ODOT, and it is again spot on as to what we are asking for and what, frankly, ODOT has not yet delivered on, if you want to call it that. So my update, I'm going to read what I've got here. Staff put this together. They just thought it was important to bring you all up to speed, and that is that you know that 3 weeks ago we asked for the delay. We want to get better, improved collaboration and transparency from ODOT. It is paused. Chair Craddock and staff have agreed to pause this till next month. We believe it'll provide 2 benefits. First, it'll allow the OTC to finish their deliberations and on how to allocate some of those federal funds for the infrastructure bill towards this project to get it going. And second, it would provide ODOT additional time to address fundamental concerns and hopefully address those unanswered questions that we have all been asking. I'm pleased to report that several other jurisdictions have made the same request. We're seeing letters come in from other cities, including Oregon City and others. And also across the region, not just Clackamas County. There will not be a decision point this Thursday. Last week at the staff level, some of the Transportation Alternatives Committee met, and they made similar recommendations to JPAC. That's duly noted. They voted to pass along recommendations of JPAC to pause consideration until more work is done, because we feel more work is needed. At this Thursday JPAC meeting, I will voice my support of TPAC's recommendation, which is to pause until more work is done, and give staff the time to draft revisions and amendments to allow this project to go forward that meets the concerns of the region, and the commitments from ODOT can then be better codified. DTD staff has been engaging in conceptual conversations with partner jurisdictions to brainstorm effective ways, revisions to find opportunities for alignment. Some of those proposed revisions include, this is kind of important here, because this is what our staff are working on conceptually. Number one, establishing a formal structure and process where impacted local jurisdictions can come together to identify and prioritize mitigation projects, monitor toll program performance, and make ongoing investment decisions in the future, should tolling, again, be approved to go forward. Directing ODOT to not begin tolling I-205 until the Federal Highway Administration has approved the Regional Mobility Pricing Project to ensure regional coordination and consistency between the 2 projects. Third, reducing the scope of the proposed amendments to, and at this time only, include the NEPA analysis and not the preliminary engineering of toll gantries and other infrastructure for the tolling project. We're asking, requiring ODOT to be financially transparent so that local jurisdictions can understand the intent behind the regional mobility pricing project, raising revenue, reducing the climate impacts as they claim, and how tolling I-205 fits into the broader regional plan. Essentially, what I want to really see is I want to know where every dollar goes. You know, I think people expect that $1 of toll revenue will go towards building capital projects, and without assurances that that's going to be the case, I think a lot of us are a little bit nervous that there's a potential that those dollars don't go towards capital projects. That'd be a shame. The other thing I want to bring up is that recently the letter that C4 sent to the OTC was discussed by C4 when staff responded, ODOT staff responded, not the OTC responded, and we were kind of upset by that. The ODOT staff responded in advance of the OTC, and they didn't really see our letter or discuss our letter. So the C4 Executive Committee is forming another letter right now to fire back to the OTC for consideration this Thursday when they meet. So we'll keep you apprised. You know, if you want to have any copies of that when it's finalized, we'll definitely circulate that to you all. That is my update on the tolling project. You're on mute, Chair.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Savas, for that very comprehensive action items. I too will be testifying this Thursday before the OTC and bringing up important issues as well, and staying on the same page. A lot of jurisdictions in the area have signed on letters jointly with us as a commission and the mayors, and then they've sent their own, and that's really good. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, tomorrow morning I'll be, as the C4 alternate, I'll be on the C4 meeting at 7:30. We're going to talk about tolling there, while Commissioner Savas attends the multi-chamber networking and I-205 tolling update in Wilsonville. And then I'll hold my other comments till Thursday. But I agree with what Paul has said. It appears to many of us, and our city also, that ODOT's playing the silent treatment game. And people fear they're going to wake up one morning, pull onto I-205 and be told with none of the answers answered. So Paul, thanks for your work on that. And we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Yep. One other thing I might add is that on my trip to my family event last week, I had the chance to be in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Austin, Texas, and Houston. And I thought the best example of a tolling where it worked, express lanes, where there's options and choice for people to either use the toll lanes or not, was in Dallas, Fort Worth. The express lanes worked great. They're generating revenue. That revenue is building projects. And traffic for the volume and the population in that area is moving pretty well. I was pretty impressed. So there are other ways of approaching this that give people a choice.
Thank you very much, commissioners. I'll just follow up by saying I have been in Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin as well. I've been in Southern California, and I've been in Florida, where all those tolling options are available, and it works very well. And they're building, expanding and expanding. And why Oregon is and ODOT is doing what they're doing is unconscionable to me. I will be in attendance tomorrow morning virtually at the event Commissioner Savas is attending. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. But I need to be back here to make sure I'm chairing the meeting. And then on Thursday, of course, like I said, I'll be testifying before the OTC, explaining the vital points. Commissioners, thank you very much for your hard work today. Thank all staff for attending as well. We will see you tomorrow. This meeting is adjourned.